The Wool Head Brownie Streamer. Start the smaller hook in your vise. Take wraps of thread right behind the eye to above the point of the hook. The exposed bend of the hook will help increase the hookup rate of fish. Then dub a short dubby noodle of red iced up on your thread, tapering it slightly up. Then take wraps just past the halfway point on the hook shank, leaving a bulbous small red butt. Then grab a fluffy, rusty brown marabou blood quill. Separate the rest from the tip and tie the tip in right in front of the dub body. Then, push all the fibers back and start taking touching palmering wraps. Bring your thread right behind the eye to get it out of the way of the wraps. Take almost overlapping wraps to make sure you get the maximum amount of material on the minimum amount of space. Make sure to push all the fibers back as you take a wrap. This will help decrease the amount of fibers that become trapped in the stem. The fibers really want to splay out when you hit thick stem. So when it gets too thick to about tie in front behind the eye, take wraps of thread to secure it. Then pull everything back and take wraps over the stem, and then cut it off. Kind of brush out the marabou. You can do it with scissors or just with your fingers. And then fold it back. Take a couple more wraps just to make sure everything is secure. Then, grab an olive marabou feather. Prepare it, pull all of the little undesirable white feathers off from the bottom, and measure the tip so it reaches the end of the rusty brown marabou. Do not palmer this one, just tie it right on top of the hook and right on top of the orange marabou. Then go ahead and cut it off, leaving a little small bud of olive marabou sticking towards the hook eye. Then, with some yellow marabou, strip about a quarter or a half inch worth of fibers away from the quill and tie it on the far side. The tips of these yellow fibers should reach the ends of the olive and orange marabou too. Then do the same to the near side. This will create a lateral line. Then go ahead and snip off the excess, leaving a little small butts. Then take a couple more wraps to build up a nice little head, and go ahead and whip finish. The exposed wraps and marabou will help keep the wrap secured and will stop it from jumping over the eye. Then go ahead and set that aside. Then, start your bigger hook in the vise. Here, size 4. I'm using a size 8 and a size 4 B10S stinger hook. Start your thread right behind the hook eye and then cut the tag end of thread off. This time, go slightly down the bend. This will help the two hooks ride parallel to each other, or on tangent to each other is a better word for it. Then, put a drop of UV glue right above the point. Kind of flatten it out as it's not super circular. Then go ahead and cure it with the UV light. Then, grab the intruder wire and tie it about two hook eyes in length behind the hook eye. The little bump of UV glue will help the wire stay secure when a fish is on it. Then, fold the wire back towards where you tied the wire in. It should be extending about a half inch past the hook bend. And then go ahead and cut that measurement off. Grab 3 large red glass beads and thread them through the wire. The excess wire we measured will account for these beads. And now, with your hook barb of the first fly you tied facing down, bring the wire up into the hook eye and over the top, and then thread it back through the beads, leaving a loop that contains the first fly you tied. Then go ahead and tie that wire down, securing the first fly to the second hook. I like to coat these thread wraps in Sally Hansen's to make sure they're secure. Then grab 10 or so pieces of holographic flash, fold them in half, and then fold them in half again over your thread. Tie them on top of the hook and keep the two sections separate. And then as you go down, pull them to either side. Then measure them to where the bend of the first fly hook would be and cut them to that length. Then create another slightly longer dubbing noodle. Still, again, tapering up towards the eye. About 3 or 4 inches should do it. Then take wraps to about, again, a little past the halfway point of the hook shank. Then grab another rusty brown marabou fiber, separate the tip and tie that down. Then go ahead and swipe it all back and bring your thread forward towards the eye and start taking, again, almost overlapping, touching wraps, palmering the marabou cleanly up the hook shank towards the eye. The fibers do like to get trapped, just make sure you're pushing them all the way back as you go up. We will go slightly deeper into the feather to create a tapered body of the fish, as the front of the fish will be fatter than the back end. And then once you reach the eye, go ahead and cut that stem off, pick out the fibers with your scissors or fingers, and wrap back to about where your dubbing body would stop, pushing all the marabou fibers back over the body, creating a nice, dense underbody. Then again, grab an olive marabou feather and put that over, again measuring it to the tips of the just previously tied in rusty orange marabou. And go ahead and tie that down. But this time, don't leave the marabou bump. Go ahead and cut that off clean. And wrap that down, creating a nice little cone head. Then again, take 2 bunches of yellow and tie them on either side, kind of in between the olive and orange. This will complete the lateral line that we tied in before. Then go ahead and cut those again, touching. Then create a nice little even thread ramp down towards the hook eye. Then, cut a piece of sculpin wool free from the little bunch. It should be about a half a pencil's in width. Then, with some of it extending just past the bend of the hook now in the vise, lay that over the body of the fly. Tie that down right where the marabou ends and leave the excess off. Then tie another clump down under the hook. Jump your thread forward and take a slightly larger clump and put it in front of the first tied in clumps. Then repeat this process again. Put one under. Try to keep the same size bunches as you go towards the hook eye. The little piece over the body should be slightly thinner than what we're using. I like it thinner, and then I like to create the body with thicker clumps, as if I used thinner clumps, it would make the tying process a lot slower. So right now I have 2 pairs of clumps in. I'm going for a third. Again, about the same size. Here in about a pencil's width and not in a half pencil's width. And then jump your thread forward. And then, as you reach the eye, push all the wool back and start taking whip finishes. If this is too hard, you can use a half-hitch tool. Again, do 2 whip finishes just to be safe, that you don't cut your thread when you're trimming the head. Hey, I was a poet and I wasn't even aware of it. Now, grab your scissors after cutting your thread, and using the hook eye as a guide, make about a 45-degree angle up towards the little piece overhanging the body. You will taper the wool from the hook eye to the over body of the wool. Then, on the downside, cut it all so it exceeds halfway into the gap of the hook. Then create a small cone head, 45 degrees scissor angle all around the head. Kind of like a muddler head. Trim the sides a little bit. It should kind of look flush with the marabou. That's when you know you have the right width. There should be kind of like a triangular indent on either of the sides, as a little bit should be extending on the under part and a lot more should be extending on the over part, creating kind of like a darker appearance. Then cut 2 indents on either side. This will help place the eyes on the fly. Then put 2 dots of super glue on either one of the indents. Then place an eye on it. While holding the eye down so the glue sets, put a little drop of glue on the other side, and then place an eye there. I like to use a little hair clip to keep these eyes in the wool while they're drying. That way they don't fall out